welcome to Them's Writin Words, a podcast discussing selected fanfictions from the world of pastel horse literature. My name is Scribbler, and I will be your moderator today, inasmuch as I moderate anything. Joining me for this discussion we have... Sorry, I literally choked on my own spit.
That's a good start.
Which one is that?
Oh, God.
I don't know that person.
Joining me for this discussion we have Clever Hooves.
Good day.
Illya Leonov.
Hello, everyone.
And our fic picker, Neighrator Pony.
Good morning.
And we're a very small bunch today, because that is everyone. It's been odd. We've sort of climbed up in numbers for quite a few times now, and now we're back down to kind of where we started with just 4 people.
I like it. It's cozy.
It is.
Intimate.
I'm honored to be in this intimate foursome with you.
Stop saying intimate, the pervy. That's not... Oh. It's creepy. Right. So today we're looking at the fanfic Don't Open the Door by Grimm, as chosen by Neighrator. The synopsis he's going to read is...
Sorry, I was unprepared. Yeah, okay.
Those were letters.
Yeah, it's not a letter, last I checked. After an expedition into the ever-free forest ends in disaster, Applejack and Rainbow Dash take refuge in an abandoned cabin until morning. This is probably a poor decision, but it's only for one night, after all. How bad could it be?
The story was published on 16th of June 2019 and clocks in at 13,654 words. So, to begin with, we're going to have a spoiler-free discussion. So anybody who's listening, if what we discuss in the spoiler-free zone interests you, you can go and either read it for yourself, or you can go and listen to the absolutely excellent reading by Robin Jacks. And I will put the link in the doobly-doo below. So to begin with, tags. Do we believe they are accurate? And the tags are gore, violence, dark, and horror. NP, what do you reckon? As fic pickers, do you think they're accurate?
Sure.
With 4 of us here, I was kind of hoping for a little more elaboration, to be honest.
I pay very little attention to tags, I'm sorry.
I know you do going in, you pay very little attention, but do you think that gore, violence, dark, and horror all apply?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. Why do you think gore and violence apply?
Do you not agree that there's some gory parts in the story?
No.
What?
I agree with the violence, but I do not agree with the gore.
It's kind of body horror. Good lord, how desensitized are you?
Body horror, yes, but it's not gore.
It's literally gory.
Well, hang on. So what's your definition of gore? Because this is supposed to be spoiler-free, so...
Gore, violence serves the purpose of a small amount of blood is shown and implied gore. When you say gore, that says to me that there is more than a little bit of blood or violence. If you feel the need to have gore and violence, I'd say that's overkill. For this particular fic and what happens in it. There's 2 instances of violence, and I wouldn't call either of them particularly gory.
Okay, but I think you're glossing over as well a particular injury that's described in enough detail that I feel that it qualifies as gore. But it's an injury
disagree.
that occurs before the story, but it is
no, I still disagree.
During the story as well.
Yeah, the one during the story is the one that I think crosses potentially into being gore, but I still don't think it counts as a gore fic. I think it counts as a violent thing that happened. But not.
Okay, so Scribbler's a gore hound. That's good to know.
We knew this about me. Have you fucking read Vampirelance? Well, Illya has. He actually narrated it.
I think you're by yourself on this one, Scribbler. I think everybody else is in agreement that gore applies.
I am aware that I am in a chat with a bunch of wimps, apparently.
Well, I just want to point out that in a previous Them's Writing Words, I know that we had this discussion before.
It was about Gorn that time. It was about the difference between gore and Gorn.
Okay. I remember saying that I felt like that having different levels of gore would make sense because there's just like the idea that there's a little bit of show, and then there's those stories that like revel in it, and that having that distinction, I think, would be useful. But
There
then,
is.
and that same discussion, if I remember it, although my memory is faulty at the best of times, was that that there isn't that distinction currently made, and so if there is a little
In the
bit, it
tags.
still gets the tag. And so, in the spirit of that, and you didn't ask me yet, so I'm just gonna come out because I'm talking, but. In that spirit, I think it belongs in that there isn't really a leveled meter of what counts as like lots of gore or a little bit of gore, in the sense that is it central to the story with other stories where do you think gore is a prominent thing? I would say no. I don't think that gore ends up being prominent in the story, but though it is used to great effect, I think, in the limited amount that it's there.
I'm just going to have to respectfully disagree then. Illya, what do you reckon? Are the tags appropriate?
I thought the tags were quite appropriate, quite accurate. I couldn't imagine any of them that weren't there that should have been in this case. I think it's going to be difficult to discuss the gore aspect, however, without discussing a bit of it in the story. And
True.
I don't know how much story can you discuss before it becomes spoilery.
Well, the summary itself says after an expedition in the Everfree Forest ends in disaster. We can pretty much say from the spoiler-free review, AJ breaks her leg, and it's a nasty, nasty break, and it really hurts her, and that's where the gore comes from apparently at the beginning. And I still don't think that counts as gore. I do think there's a missing tag though.
Well, what's the missing tag?
Psychological.
That's a tag.
I
is a
didn't know
tag.
that was a tag. Tell me
I
about
didn't know it was
psychological.
Because I can't go into why it's psychological until MP has given us the summary of the story.
Yeah,
No, but I mean, what? How would you define the psychological tag? Is because I'm unfamiliar with it.
Psychological just refers to anything to do with psychological horror or psychological based story beats. So if anything is based on manipulation of mind, memories, or anything like that, psychological. Or if it is to do with,
would have had that in it, then I think.
Yeah, probably. But definitely this one does.
Yeah, this one I would agree then qualifies. Now that I know what it is and what it means.
So because we can't discuss, we've already had borderline discussions on it, but we need to have the summary of the story so that people have a context for what we're saying here about gore and violence and things. So, MP, do you want to give us the summary of the story, the spoiler-free version?
No, that's not what I did. I wrote
I know,
the whole...
but there's literally a point that said a brief summary of the story, like what's the premise of this fic? Not the full thing, just what's the premise?
So you want something in between the story's description, but not
We always
the full...
do this. I had to do it
I'm not
last
sure
time.
we do.
This is
I'm
very
not sure that's
easy.
the
I
case.
can do it if you wish.
Ilya,
Yeah.
would you please?
Because this is just like, if
Do
people
it.
don't want to be spoiled, but they want to know if it's something that's interesting to them, this is the
Why
bit
don't
where
we
they find
just
that out.
move right into? Why don't we just move right into the
Because then people
spoilery
don't
plot
know
synopsis?
whether or not they want to listen to the story to come back and listen to us.
Ilya, it's all you. You got this.
Okay, quite frankly and simply, there's a cabin in the middle of the Everfree Forest, and AJ and Rainbow Dash stumble into it. Applejack has a broken leg. They decide to spend the night in the cabin rather than try to seek help because it's about to get dark and it's the Everfree. And that's the premise of the story.
See, there we go.
Well done, Ilya. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure that that this was Sam Raimi writing under the pen name Grimm.
Sam Raimi in the 80s, but he had no budget.
Or even now.
Does that mean that AJ should be played by Bruce Campbell in the movie version?
Groovy.
Kind of
That's
has the
pretty good.
accent down already. Also, I can't imagine Bruce Campbell being Rainbow Dash.
Yeah, it's very cheesy slasher movie kind of stuff.
It really is. It definitely reminded me of an 80s movie, Stuck in the Cabin in the Woods.
Absolutely.
Or Cabin in the Woods, which
Or the movie
was,
called
Yeah.
A Cabin in the Woods.
which
Except
I
we
think
don't
was
speak
produced
of
by
its-
Sam Raimi.
We'll give credit for that to Sam Raimi because the director's an arsehole, so yeah. Moving on. Brief highlighting of later points. So just general opinions of Do you like this fic? Do you not? Before we go into spoilers.
This is like spoiler teasing. You know that, right? This is like
that's the whole point.
Spoiler blueballing your entire audience.
So you can start off. Go on.
Brief highlighting of later points, tone, pacing, etc.
Just whether or not you liked it or not is what I'm asking.
Oh, I liked it very much.
You chose this fic. So without giving away the ending, do you think it's worth other people checking out? Because that's not always a given on these podcasts. Sometimes we review crap.
Apologies to those authors.
Wow. This one, I was introduced to this fic by way of Robin Jackson. Robin Jack's very excellent fully casted audio adaptation. Kind of the horror dark genre of MLP fanfiction I feel has gotten pretty crowded, and I inevitably reading a lot of bad ones, and this one stood out quite a lot, kind of a diamond in the rough. In addition, Robin Jacks is a newer fanfic reader who does excellent work, and I encourage everybody to go subscribe to him.
Very much so. Same. Illya, what do you reckon?
It's a difficult question, actually. Is it a good fic or is it an enjoyable fic? They're not necessarily the same thing. Mm-hmm. And there's a third one, did I like it, which is apart from the first two.
Well, the enjoyable one would be, is it enjoyable to you?
It was not enjoyable to me because I don't like this sort of story. You know, boogers in the woods trying to kill you. That's dull to me.
I literally just envisioned that the monster of this is now a giant bogey.
It's a giant bogey in the woods, and it's coming. It might as well have been for what it was described.
I Big now have a writing prompt.
But,
oh no, Epi, you're not allowed to write about the giant snot attacking ponies in the woods.
It was extremely well written. I was surprised that I was able to fly through the fic as fast as I could because I did think the writing was so good. It set up the mood. It pulled you along through the fic. It was quite well written for what it was, but it's not one I would have sought out.
And clever?
Well, as always, when you follow Illya, you always sound just pale in comparison. I found myself liking it, sort of like. So okay, hold on. All right, so I agree. The writing was good. I felt it was well written. There were a few parts where the pacing kind of annoyed me. And there's a disclaimer here. I was reading this last night and I was tired, and I was reading it because I was like, damn, I wanna read it so we can talk about it tomorrow. So there was sort of that added pressure. It wasn't like leisurely read. So that may have affected my impression on some parts where I was like, okay, come on, let's go. But overall, yeah, I mean, if you like psychological thrillers, I felt that it did that well. And I read it and I smiled at a few parts because it was like ponies in a Sam Raimi film. And I kind of dig that. So I liked it, I guess. I don't know why I'm hedging, and I'll think about that.
So we've reached the end of spoiler-free territory. So if any of what we've discussed, argued about, or pontificated on so far appeals to you, our dear listener, we would encourage you to go and either read the fic or listen to it, and then come back and join us because we are going into spoilers now. So MP, do you want to now read your lovingly scribed plot summary with all full spoilers intact?
Sure. I just want to make it clear to everyone I was typing this up literally to the last minute before we started recording, so this is not some of my best work. So
you actually bothered to type up a summary. I never bother when that's me, so you are already streets ahead of where I am.
Here we go. Our fic begins with a lengthy exposition describing an abandoned cabin in the middle of the Everfree Forest. Suddenly, Rainbow Dash and Applejack burst into the cabin. Applejack has suffered a major bone fracture in her leg, and the reader is treated to a wince-inducing scene of Rainbow Dash setting and splinting it, which everyone finds gory except Scribbler because she's a freak. We learn from their discussion that the two had been out in the Everfree Forest pursuing some rogue timber wolves that had been harassing the Apple family farm. When Applejack was ensnared in some vines, and fell into a ravine and was thusly injured. The two evaluate their options. Rainbow Dash initially wants to fly away and get help, but since they deem it unlikely that Rainbow Dash will be able to find her way back, they instead decide to sleep in the cabin for the night and make their way out together in the morning. As they explore the cabin, they observe that the cabin's table has the ominous warning, "Do not open the door," don't open the door, hastily scratched into it, and a knife stuck into its top. In the night, the two are awoken by a scratching of a creature slowly making its way around the cabin, trying to find a way in. Fortunately, Rainbow Dash had the foresight to lock the door before turning in for the night. Before long, they hear a voice coming from the other side. It's Scootaloo, and she claims to have followed Rainbow Dash into the forest and pleads to be let in. After a lengthy discussion, they decide that the creature on the other side is indeed not Scootaloo and decide to heed the warning scratched into the table and not open the door. But the two realize that something is affecting their memory as the creature tries again using different voices each time, and they are alternately tempted to open the door and have to keep reminding each other not to. More ominously, next to the words "do not open the door" on the table, they can see their own hoof writing the names of all the friends the creature has impersonated, though they have no memory of writing them. As the night drags on, the table becomes filled with names, and eventually the walls and floor as well. Finally, the creature impersonates Applejack's father, and on the verge of madness, Applejack insists that they open the door against Rainbow Dash's protestations. The two scuffle, and Applejack manages to get the upper hoof, and Rainbow has no choice but to wrench Applejack's already broken leg, which is extremely painful. In retaliation, Applejack grabs the knife from the table and stabs Rainbow in the leg. Applejack then limps to the door and opens it, and we get a brief look at the creature, who is a gross shape-shifting monster thing. It reaches in and grabs Applejack with an impossibly long arm, but Rainbow Dash slams the door shut again, severing the arm. The remainder of the night passes without further incident, and just as the two are preparing to leave, they hear a knock on the door. It's Twilight Sparkle again, saying she's come to help them, and they feel safe now that daylight has come, and we're left hanging as they decide to open the door.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Anybody have anything they want to add?
No, I think you covered everything.
You know what I didn't mention was the exposition about the door itself and how the door has like millions of locks all over it, but all the locks but one don't do anything, so they just like bolts that crisscross the door and don't actually extend beyond it, so they're functionally useless except for one. There's only one bolt on the door that actually locks it.
I really didn't get that part.
I thought they must be magic.
I wonder if they're like notches on the belt for the creature.
Oh, could be.
Oh, that's pretty good.
You know, like, because like in Paris on that bridge, they put the locks on for the lovers. I was like, I wonder if it's the creature's like notch.
Oh, God.
Oh, that's good, actually. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. I just came up with that just in case you thought I'd been thinking that the whole time.
It's a good idea.
I know, right? Yeah. Because at the time I was like, okay, because at the time I thought, is this like a Chekhov's gun kind of thing? Like, are we going to talk about these? Or is it just to like add creep? Because there was a bit of, creep factor to it. But then it kind of got left alone. And I was like, I don't know what that was about.
Well, it's equally as valid as anything the author attempted to explain.
Which was very little.
Why don't we add that point in? I feel like we ought to discuss that at some point.
Good. Do it.
Me put it in, slot this in. Right.
Me put it in.
Put it in.
Oh, God, no, man.
Slot it in.
Oh, God.
I
I remember a time when Illya was beyond this kind of corruption.
No, you don't.
It was a very long time ago. Okay, probably yes.
One of us.
To be fair, Illya has been in this fandom longer than all of us, and one of the first things he ever said when we met was, "I really like Luna's butt."
Amen.
See there?
Yeah, but he changed to Celestia's butt now.
But I still hold that Rarity has the nicest butt.
That's a new one. It was Maud Pie last time.
I'm not attracted to it, but she has a nice butt.
Characterization. Do we feel it is accurate for Rainbow Dash and Applejack?
Well, I reckon you should go first, NP, as the fic picker.
I always have so little to say on this point.
Well, do you reckon there's only two characters in this, because everybody else who speaks is potentially a fake, and the monster we're going to discuss later. So the way that Rainbow Dash and Applejack react to their situation, both before the monster shows up and afterwards, Do you reckon they are show accurate?
I would say yes. Rainbow Dash, definitely has shows tremendous loyalty to Applejack. She wants to fly off and get help, but also realize, but Applejack is scared to be left alone, and she's not confident she'll be able to find her way back. And so, yeah, I think it was. I think the characterization is pretty accurate. I also thought that bit where they were talking about, they're sort of the authors communicating that they're communicating with each other without actually talking, in that way that people do, because they're trying to discuss the monster without making any noise. And I thought that in particular was well done. And it's more or less, I think, the way that those two would talk in a situation like that.
Illya, what do you reckon?
I too believe the characterizations were quite accurate, although it's kind of difficult to tell because this was an extremely novel situation. Not only did Applejack have a compound fracture that Rainbow Dash was trying to set, apparently with some knowledge of that sort of thing, but they were in a cabin that no one had ever seen before in the middle of the ever-free forest at night. A lot of this, it was so novel, it's kind of difficult to tell. The fact that Applejack really wanted to open the door when her pseudo-father was outside, I think that rang pretty true. So I'd say, yeah, most overall, that was pretty accurate.
And clever?
I thought for the vast, 90%, maybe higher. I'm not good with my percentages. Don't tease me. It was absolutely felt like it was show characters. But I do have a couple of comments, and I think that they're centered around plot points, and that is that Applejack is honesty. Like, she's supposed to be kind of like honesty incarnate, and I felt that it had to be convenient for the story that she couldn't accept the truth that wasn't her father. Like, it's a very great scene that's written. It's very well written, where Rainbow is confronting Applejack with the truth, and Applejack says, say that one more time, and she's kind of losing it. And there's a part of me that's like, well, your core is supposed to be honesty, Applejack, and this is one of those honest truths that's core to you, and you're trying to self-deceive. And it's not that in the show that she's ever, beyond crossing a line like that. It just, in that moment, it made me wonder, would this get explained away because she's under the assuage of the mental powers of the monster, or is this actually a failing of the character? And the other thing and I'm not sure this is characterization, but I include descriptions of is this something someone could do? I kind of thought, again, to serve the story, we have to have Rainbow and Applejack in that cabin, but it strikes me as weird that why couldn't Rainbow have flown Applejack to safety? That part I don't get, because it's in canon that Rainbow can literally carry 4 ponies at near rainbow sonic rainboom speeds. That happened in the first season in episode 16, and I just didn't get why she didn't do that, except that then there wouldn't be a story. So outside of those kind of two things that kind of stuck out at me in terms of that those are points that had to serve the story, we have to kind of ignore them. The rest, I would say, is very confidently canon.
Anybody have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think this element stuff is somewhat bullshit. I call it. I mean, there's so many times when Applejack has lied. There's so many times when Rainbow Dash has not been loyal. There's so many times when Rarity has not been generous. Those 3 ponies do not live up to their elements. It just is a fact.
I always thought that the times they didn't live up to their elements, they had to therefore overcome it, and it was meant to show they weren't paragons of virtue. They were, for want of a better word, human, and they make mistakes, but the strength of their element is learning from that and learning to overcome. That lesson for little kids thing the show's supposed to be about. You're not perfect, just try to be good and try to be better than the person you were yesterday.
Well, in any case, I I kind of felt like I was like, ooh, you know, I realized this hits really close to home for the character. And so part of me was like, I want, like, it could be explained away. It stood out at me as a moment of, this is sort of in conflict with who you're supposed to be a little bit. But anyway, it didn't. Neither of those things detracted so much that I was, you know, saying, no, this is bullshit. I felt that it, on the whole, that the characterizations were wrong.
Anybody have anything to follow up with? This is going to be a fucking short podcast.
Was kind of hoping
novel.
that would be the case. We'll see.
I know you need to go to bed.
No, I'm doing okay for time. I sort of anticipated this would be a fic that people wouldn't have a whole lot to say about.
All right, this is your Emma when it comes to fic picking now. Well, there was one thing I found was it kept pulling me out of the story, and it sounds really daft, and it's purely a personal preference, and it kind of almost doesn't work. I didn't like the random swearing. And I know that makes no sense in a story with a monster that tries to kill them and stabbing and things. But it was the moments of non-stress swearing that made me just go, that seems a bit weird now, place.
I think the fandom in general has kind of agreed to say buck instead of the F word and so on.
Yeah, the fact that they... I did, and it did pull me out of what was going on. Not in a huge way, but just in a, didn't expect that kind of
Same
way.
here, actually.
See, for me, I cheered that on. I was like, yeah, because that's if we're making them more relatable, like they're still who they are, but like it in those moments, it was like, yeah, this is a situation where even if you're like 90% clean, like.
But clever, that would work. But literally, the first time I noticed it was when Applejack. I think it's the point where she's having her leg set into a splint, and she's Rainbow Dash says something to the lines of, "Does that hurt?" And she goes, "Of course it fucking hurt." And I was like, "Oh, that seems a bit odd and out of place, but maybe that's just where we're going with this." Immediately, her next line is the hay instead of the hell. So if you're gonna do a bit like that, commit to it, is what I mean. It was the weird interspersing of both that just pulled me out of it.
I could see that.
I agree.
I agree with that. I didn't have a problem with her swearing. I agree that I also noticed that hey afterwards. I was like, oh, so she recovered enough in like the span of a sentence to like, you know, no longer like to, because to me, like setting the leg, she was probably still in a lot of pain, and that was sort of like she was still reacting in pain, and then like a sentence later, apparently she had like that pain had subsided enough that she didn't, you know, she could regain her composure, and I thought that was odd that happened that quickly. So yeah, I agree that they should have committed a bit more with it if they were going to do it.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what you choose to do, but if you choose to do something, commit. So on that note, that does segue quite nicely into standard point we usually have, the impressions of the prose style. How does this story read? Is it trying to achieve any particular tone? And how well does it achieve this? So Clever, I'm going to start with you because I'm starting the other way around in the order of names in the chat. So Clever, what are your impressions of the prose style then?
First, thank you. I enjoy hearing Illya, but when he talks before me, goddamn, like just damn. All right. It was a good read. I found that as Illya said earlier, that once I got into it, it started to really fly, and I felt that was from good word choice. There was rich description. At times, as I said earlier, I found that the description and of scene and situation felt a little over at times, but not so over that I feel it was gratuitous. It just it changed the pacing a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm reading at the questions to remind me what else I'm supposed to talk about. How does it read? Is it trying to achieve particular tone? Yeah, it's trying to definitely give you cabin in the woods kind of feels, and I think for the most part it succeeds. There's definitely a tension that's brought out, and it's palatable. I'm with them. I feel this pull, and I felt that it was especially effective pacing when during the parts of the story where they're describing the monster coming at them again and again and again. That was probably the most successful part of the story to me. How well does it achieve it? Yeah, it does a good job. I was pretty stressed out reading most of the story, and that's what the point was. The one thing I think I would have appreciated in terms of tone and whatnot was a few more breaks, I guess. And maybe because of the story length, it didn't warrant it. There was a moment where Rainbow, like the monster kind of fucks up and loses some of its perfect image of being someone that it's trying to imitate. It's trying to imitate
other one.
Yeah, Twilight. It's to be like a Rainbow Dash and the other one, and that was
Your
comical.
Rainbow Dash and the other one is Applejack.
Yeah, and it was comical in a way. Like, oops, the monster screwed up, and Rainbow loses it, laughing at it. It's like, we got you, kind of thing. And I would have appreciated maybe one more moment like that in the whole thing. Just to kind of lighten it up a little bit. Not that that's the kind of fic that deserves to be lightened up. As a reader, I was pretty stressed for a good chunk of the story, and I've been talking way too long, so I'm going to stop.
No, you're fine. MP, what do you reckon?
Everybody else go first. There's a big fucking lawnmower going around outside my window.
Okay. Illya?
I thought the prose style, excuse me, I thought the prose style was spot on. It was a testament to the story and to the writing that I was pulled straight through. I read it in under an hour. It just pulled me right through the story. I didn't need to stop and think or pull back or force myself to go on. It was written in beautiful descriptive prose. If I had any liking for this sort of story, it would have been wonderful. The fact that nothing happened but a booger was kind of dull to me, really honest with you. And I won't talk about it now because it's not the time to talk about it, but the author could have saved the story for me with an appropriate denouement if he had taken the time to end the story. Then it would have been pretty good, but as it was, it left me hanging.
Oh, well, we'll talk about that when we get to the ending, because that's one of our last points in this, is our thoughts on the ending. MP, has the lawnmower stopped?
He's moved a house down now, so I think we're okay.
Okay.
I don't hear it.
Yeah, I can't hear it either.
I thought the prose style was very excellent, top tier. We were treated to a long, lengthy exposition of the cabin at the start of the fic, and it does a great job of setting the stage, setting this sort of instilling a sense of sort of foreboding in the reader. Very well done, and then just throughout the story, the rising action, there's just a wonderful sense of tension in the air. So yes, prose style, top tier, 10 out of 10.
I thought that the prose style was pretty good. I find myself in a weird bind in this, because I've gone on record before now as saying that I love descriptions and I am a sucker for a good description. But even so, I kind of felt like this one overdid it a bit, and we'll get more into it when we talk about the beginning of the story. And in fact, I might segue straight into it since it's the next point. Most stories that we've covered here start in media res, so with the action already going on, we go straight into what's going on. But this one starts with a prolonged, really detailed description of the setting. And that added to this thing that I got bored of the constant descriptions of setting. I wanted the plot to move faster. And I know that wasn't the purpose. It was meant to be creating this dark atmosphere. And I just kind of felt it was a bit wasted on me in this regard, because I wasn't appreciating it. I wanted to know what happened next. And that was a purely personal thing. So do we, as a whole, do you guys, I should say, think that this added to the atmosphere, or should the story have just started when when AJ and RD arrived at the cabin? I'm going to start with Illya on this one.
Absolutely. I loved that part. That was my favorite part of the story until they actually started interacting. I was just sucked. It was so good, in fact, that I contemplated going to my recording studio and just recording that first part because it was so wonderfully told. It was a great description, and I didn't resent it in the least. I thought it was a perfect setup to what happened.
It was almost Lost Cities, if you think about it, huh? Kind of the same kind of...
Kind of was, really, yeah.
I'm with you, Scribbler. I'm not saying it wasn't well written. It was very well written. I did find myself getting a little bored. But again, to explain a little bit, I felt a bit rushed in trying to read it. So there was a part of me that was probably feeling stressed about that. But I was kind of like, yeah, okay, Cabin in the Woods, I get it. It's foreboding. Something's going to happen. Like that was, I think it was for me. It could have stopped where it said scratch marks, right? And then if we transitioned to Rainbow coming in, and then if some of this beautiful description was sort of interspersed a little between the action, I think I would have been a little less impatient with it. But I there's nothing wrong with it. Like it's like what was said. It was very well read. It's very rich. I don't think it goes on being too rich. I just think it could have been broken up with action, and that might have kept me a little more feeling less impatient.
MP, what do you reckon?
I thought the opening bit was one of the best parts. Honestly, just did a terrific job of setting the scene, setting the stage. This sort of sense of foreboding, and I think there's a lot of sort of breath imagery that the whole cabin was sort of holding its breath and waiting. I thought it was very well done.
So we seem to be divided along two people lines. So Cliver and I versus Illya and MP. We just wanted the story to get going, and you guys really appreciated the depth of description.
VladiVoices is coming, so.
Oh, is she?
Tiebreaker.
I want to pause for a second for her to get here.
What the same hell's going on here?
I found my people.
I like how neither of you had to say anything. You just immediately started beatboxing or complimenting each other with musical interlude.
I found my people.
Well, MPs, what the Sam Hill's going on here just was the cherry on top of that cake. Also, because you were very restrained there, MP. The Sam Hill.
It's Sam Hell. It's not swearing. It said hell. That's still swearing.
I always thought it was Sam Hill.
No, it's Sam Hale.
Oh, really?
What the Sam hell's going on here?
What the Sam Hale?
Excuse me, did anyone call my name? I'm Sam Hill. No, not you, Sam.
That I always thought, because I only ever heard that one when Yosemite Sam said it in Looney Tunes as a kid, and I thought there really was a place called Sam Hill.
You varmint! What in Sam Hill's going on here?
See, it sounds identical.
I grew up. My dad used to take me to Yosemite all the time. I'd gone half a dozen times by the time I was like 12, 13 or so. And it wasn't until I saw Yosemite Sam written down that I thought Yosemite was like, I don't know, Yosammity. I had no idea that these two words were the same.
That would make sense.
It said Yosemite.
It didn't make sense to me until the Yosemite OS came out, and then I was like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah, I always thought it was Yosemite Park.
Me
Same,
too.
Yosemite.
And it wasn't until I heard someone talking about it, I was like, oh, and then backwards in my head, I was like, and Yosemite Sam was actually Yosemite Sam, but we say Yosemite. Oh,
I didn't connect him with the park at all.
Yeah, it immediately did for me, because then I was like, and that makes sense. It's like calling him Yukon George or something. And I was like, and that totally clicks with his character. And that's, today I learned.
So yeah, Yosemite. I got this picture of me standing on top of Half Dome. It was had somebody take the picture with it was like a disposable panorama camera that the back back in like 97 that you can still buy. So I'm very proud of those. Yeah, I'm very proud of that picture.
Disposable film camera, kids. If you don't know what they are, you can still find them occasionally in old gas stations that you shouldn't buy a candy from. Just saying.
Somebody will develop those now?
Yeah, you can find places.
Oh, yeah, there's still places now. Usually you have to send them off, or they are really specific places you have to go to. But they are still there.
How weird do you have to be not to have a phone in your pocket?
My mother.
Cygnus.
That's a your mama joke.
Oh, God, yes, Cygnus. I forgot
mama.
that. I forgot how fucking difficult it was to ever find him at BronyCon.
He doesn't have a phone?
Cygnus.
I think he had a flip phone or something, and we're like, where is he? Where's Cygnus? They can get a hold of him. He's got this like netbook that he carries around, and so you can kind of catch him when he's on Wi-Fi.
Well, in this dimension, I suppose.
But we kind of had to guess who he was with and then contact them and say, Cygnus with you, we need him here.
No one.
Or sometimes Goosey would be narrating some things about Cygnus.
We'd be looking everywhere for Cygnus, and we practically caused a stampede because we thought we saw someone who looked like Cygnus. It turns out it was not Cygnus.
Yeah, we really freaked out that guy who looked like Cygnus from behind.
It's like, oh, guys, I found him. I found Cygnus. Oh, it's just Ewan McGregor. Ugh, get out of here.
Get out of here, Ewan.
Yeah, good times. Good times. It's been like nearly 2 years since the last BronyCon. How the fuck did that happen?
Well, there was this little thing called coronavirus. I don't know if you heard of it.
I know that just erased an entire year.
I really can't wait till cons go up again, because I'd really like to meet you folks.
There aren't that many cons coming back, to be honest.
I got one coming up in Labor Day.
Which one?
Method. It's a fur con.
Oh, I don't go to fur cons.
What's a fur con? Is that like Shaka Con?
Someone doesn't know what a fur con is.
Have you heard of furries, sir?
Oh,
listen to that. Oh, that is the oldest I have ever heard.
Here's
sweet
more
summer
to
child.
that. My dad. I went for a walk with him one night this week because I was fizzing when I got home from work. I was so angry. He walked up and said, "Do you want to go out for a walk to calm down?" "Yes, please." So I went for a walk, and apropos of nothing, midway through the walk, he went, "What's a fursuit?" I was like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!"
Oh no!
It was something he'd heard in passing because he's retired, so he hears all kinds of shit, and then comes and asks me what it is. I was like, "Oh, fuck! We are like 5 minutes from the house. How do I condense the entirety of the furry fandom into 5 minutes?" So I just brought up a fursuit on my phone, showed it to him, and said, "Do you want me to explain further?" And I went, "Nope."
That is a weird bunch of folk.
The thing is, I've since discovered that he did kind of understand when I showed him the picture, because there's an old episode of CSI that is set at a furry con, but it explains yiff piles. And that was my dad's only context. And afterwards, my mom said, he's really regretting that he asked you that.
We have a Vlad.
We have a Vladdy!
Vladdy!
Can we hear a Vladdy?
Maybe Vladdy's working on getting her stuff figured out, or his stuff figured out.
There's a lot of buttons to push in this thing.
I like to push buttons.
Got to assign a key to push to talk. I think most of us use control. You can find that in the settings.
Or you're like me and you have a caps lock and therefore accidentally type in caps all the time.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I use that little tilde symbol. I think that's what it's called. And that, unfortunately, when I'm not selected with mumble, ends up making it look like I'm smashing my keyboard.
I use the rightmost button.
Also a good idea.
Vladdy?
That means we can talk shit about Vladdy and they can't hear us right now.
Except I'm recording it, so please don't. And also, Vladdy's lovely.
I wouldn't talk shit. I just said we could talk shit.
Please don't.
I've been thinking VladiVoices was someone else this whole last time.
What? Why?
I'm not sure I've read any of her.
You've heard Vladdy so many times. She's the Luna I usually... She's Luna in History Repeats.
Oh.
Oh, a good Luna.
She's
Yo.
an excellent Luna.
Can't beat a
Well,
good Luna.
Mm-hmm.
the fun has quintupled.
Hello? Can anyone hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yes, hello.
Can you hear
I
us?
can't seem to hear you, though. So how do I hear you now?
Bada bow bow bada 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 bow bow bow. Gonna keep on with the beatbox till you can hear it. Ba beep beady beep bow bow bow.
How we doing?
We're halfway there. We can hear her, but she can't hear us.
Oh, okay. My knowledge gets exhausted very, very easily on Mumble.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Hello, IT. Have you tried switching it off and on again?
Oh my god, that is a perfect Yorkshire accent. Where the fuck did that come from?
It's the IT crowd.
I know, but that's not the IT crowd voice. That's what's making me laugh. You missed Irish, but that was pitch perfect Yorkshire.
How fucking dare you tell me I missed Irish?
You missed Irish.
you?
Sometimes you miss
How
American and
dare
go
you.
Scottish. So and Sean Neighrator Pony was therefore bored. I take no credit for that because you invented him during a blooper reel and it was hilarious.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm Sean Connery to Pony.
Best pun ever.
And here I was starting to think you didn't like puns.
I really lucked out choosing Neighrator Pony because that long A sound you can just make it anything.
See, I'm okay with puns except when they're overdone. But I love them especially when NP comes up with them because I love him. So there we go.
Favoritism.
Oh, yeah. Don't know why you're pointing that out. I was expecting more to that comment than that.
Oh, Scribbler, you're so sappy.
Declarations of love and favoritism.
Yeah.
That IT chick, where's she from?
She was London, I think, or at least Sussex. She was somewhere down south. She was really popular in loads of things at the time and has kind of faded into obscurity. As the two male actors, their stars have just continued to rise. In fact, with three male stars, because there was the asshole boss who now just does voiceovers for everything.
And the guy in the closet.
To be honest, he also kind of faded into obscurity for a short while. But his big thing was something called the Mighty Boosh, which I just never got into.
The mighty
David
Cringe
Ayoade
humor.
is still around, right?
Yes, he's one of those whose star has risen exponentially.
There'll be a bit of fan noise until it goes off. Shouldn't take long.
It's fine. We're still working on Vladdy's. Yeah, I was going to say my headphones are always weird unless I've plugged them directly into my mic. I wonder if that would help.
It would depend on how it's all set up.
Yeah, I know. I'm just grasping at straws. My technical knowledge is painfully little.
Yeah, I'm pretty analog. Anything digital is just sort of a tick on my analog system.
Now she can hear us, but she can't talk.
Oh, man.
God.
Okay.
Maybe if she uses the internal mic like Skywriter did.
Okay, Vladdy, go back into your configure and then settings. And this time we're going to go to audio input and then try a different device there. And just kind of go through them. Well, we need you guys to beatbox now, so she has some. So, like, now's your chance.
So she has nothing. She has something to listen to know if she can hear us. Why do
Okay,
you
not
always
that.
go for bow chicka wow wow every time? Oh, what is my life?
Can we not alienate the only other girl on the cast? Her very first appearance with Bouchigal Bow Wow.
Non-alienation is not one of our attributes.
We could always have someone just recite something. MP, what do you want to recite?
Again, favoritism.
Of course. I don't know why you keep bringing this up.
Just like pointing it out.
Are you telling me that if your wife was here, you would not be playing favorites? Sorry, Illya.
My wife is right behind me. I think she should come and say hi.
Yes.
Come say hi.
She's
Please
shaking her
go
head
do that. Yes.
furiously no.
Mrs. Cleverhoof.
Come on, say
Mrs.
hi.
Hooves, come and see us.
They're calling for you now. Come say hi. Just come say
You
hi.
made the mistake of telling us you were there.
Clever Hoovette.
Just to say hi.
Hooves.
I don't know if you heard her. Hang on. Let me just hang on. I have to switch my audio settings.
Hello.
Hey, hello. It's lovely to meet you, ma'am.
Well, it's nice to meet you guys too.
Indeed.
We are the people who keep periodically stealing your husband for hours at a time on a Sunday.
Yes, that is true.
We're not close to done, unfortunately. So I hope you can spare him for a bit longer.
Only for a couple more hours.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
I
shouldn't
think-
take that long. We're just
shouldn't
having
take that
technical
long.
issues with one of our members at the moment.
Oh, fun. All right, you guys have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, indeed.
And she's quickly scurrying away.
Stop narrating her like that.
No, she laughed as she left. It was all good.
I love that. It's like, my wife is right here. She is shaking her head. No, she is telling me no. She's saying access denied.
Well, but I mean, for the people who can't see the whole thing, I feel it's
I
only
know,
fair.
that's why it was funny.
But yes, and she actually has picked a name for her pony soda, so she isn't just Mrs. Clever Hooves.
I remember she had a name, but I couldn't remember
What's
what
the
it was.
She's Tyrion Star.
Hey.
Wow.
What does Tyrion mean?
Well, it comes from tyrant, but
It's a
it's
little
also-
bitty person on
dear.
Game of Thrones,
It's
I
all-
think.
That's what I thought. Game of Thrones.
well, it's also a shade of purple.
Tyrion?
Yes,
Is it?
yes, it is.
I'm the color guy. That's not possible.
It fits, I guess. Purple's the color of royalty and all that.
That's right, and
I
that's
guess
where
that.
it gets its root from
So
Hey.
that's where Tyrion got his name.
because
he
of
was
his
royal.
royal. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Ah.
Because and again, it comes word tyrant and what have you. But
So what made her want to choose Tyrion Star then?
So if I truly explain it, I actually give away her in real life name, but it is a play on her in real life name in a fashion. Plus, she loves
I thought
purple.
it was.
My OC's name is Cliffhanger, and my first name is Cliff IRL, so that worked out.
See, I never knew that about you until you had to explain it. That was your name, the name of your pony-sona. Because my pony-sona doesn't have her own name; she is just Scribbler Bone.
Yeah, it's always a little weird for people. It rarely comes up because everybody just calls me NP. So, and that's fine.
I thought your OC's was Neighrator Pony. I thought that was the name.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like Neighrator Pony is like the name of the channel, but like the OC's name.
Oh, okay. It's okay. I get what you're following. I didn't.
Which
didn't
is
realize it
different
was
from your fic nom de plume, too.
He has many, many
several.
fic nom
I
de
have
plumes.
more than one of those. Yes.
Yes, as we found out at BronyCon with that story we've told multiple times.
Oh Lord, not again.
Do you want to relate that one for those who don't know?
No. I think
Oh,
I've told that
come
story
on.
like twice on the podcast
No,
already.
you
No,
haven't,
thank you.
though. Once.
Well,
When
it's all
NP
recorded
is
for
an
posterity. Anybody
absolutely
kills
An
anybody else.
accomplished author. He just refuses to acknowledge this.
I've written so many shitty like HIE like really gratuitous self-insert stories under a variety of names, and like very few people know about it. I haven't even logged into most of those accounts in years.
Wow.
And
HIE.
Yes, so original,
My guilty
right?
pleasure.
I've yet to read one.
Oh, good
And then I
Lord,
was-
that's all I read.
Only one of them was eventually exposed when Illya was like, when Illya read my fic, and then we'd been in Reader's Chat together for like a year together or something. And I was like, oh yeah, I actually wrote that. And then Illya and Thorny are like, you what?
Which
Illya
fic was
didn't
that?
How to Train Your Pegasus was the one you read.
But that's not a HIE.
No, that one
but
is
it was
not. But most of my other ones are. That one's also
that was
a
just the only
self-insert.
one that's been publicly connected to MP,
Well,
despite
How
being
to Train
written
Your
under a
Pegasus
different
is a
name.
good story. That was a lot of fun.
I know, right?
Don't-
He's
I
a
don't
really
like it.
good author. I
It's
still have
so
a copy of
bad.
your other story that you erased, that you didn't realize I had saved because I wanted to read it anyway before I knew it was you.
That. It's so bad.
I've already been reading it, and it's
No!
not. You are a
Delete
much better
this.
author than you
Delete
think.
this.
Why would I delete it? It's not
Delete
my document.
this, please.
I don't even have the only copy.
I will admit that I originally read HTTYP because it had a dragon character.
I know you do love Dragon.
But it wasn't bad. It was a good one.
Huh? See? I told you.
I don't want to talk
You
about
never
it.
believe me. You never believe me.
I don't want to talk about it.
That's because you're biased.
No, you all are biased. It's bad. I
We're
wouldn't know I
biased in
wrote it.
favor of you.
See, but that immediately makes your credibility go down when you tell him something's good. So he should listen to Illya, is what he should do.
I don't know who the fuck it was when I read it. Some guy named Legion 3P something or
Yeah.
other.
So how's Vladdy doing? Is Vladdy...
I acquired my secret name 55 years ago.
By secret, you mean your in real life name, or do you mean Illya Leonov?
I mean, Illya. I acquired Illya in about 1964, 5, somewhere in there.
Are you going to tell the story, or is it just it was a wonderful day, 1964, Sicily?
It was far too boring for that. It was just an extremely popular television show at the time called The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the blonde guy, was a young blonde kid, was Illya Kuryakin. And so I said, I want to be named that. And it wasn't possible until the internet came along. And then suddenly, I can be him now.
Ah. Well, being that we're sharing these stories, why not? I had to come up with a name because I had auditioned for Scribbler, and I initially just auditioned under my in real life name, and then I got in. I wasn't expecting to get in.
Because you then gave me this other name, and I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Because I couldn't find your audition because it was under a different name.
Yeah. And so
Clever Hooves was a placeholder, wasn't it?
I had a day. I had a day where I had to figure out a name, and I came up with it in a day, and I was trying to come up with a pony name. I didn't know there was like a pony name generator out there. That I didn't even look for that. I didn't even think that existed. So I was trying to come up with, I'm like, is there an algorithm I can figure this out with? Is there like a way to do this so it sounds right? And what I ended up defaulting on was, I kept in my head, I was remembering back to university, and in one of my first year psych courses, we learned about a horse called Clever Hans. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Clever Hans.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Smartest horse in the world.
yes, he was the smartest horse in the world. At least he was billed as that. And he did tours around Europe, and people would ask him questions, and he would like stomp his hoof, and he could apparently do math. He could answer all kinds of things. And what they realized later, when they started doing some testing with this horse, was that Clever Hans could only actually answer questions so long as someone in the room knew the answer. And what he was doing was he was reading body language. And so, I mean, he was still a very smart horse, just not in the way that they thought he was smart. He was really good at reading the room. And that story always kind of stuck with me. And I was like, well, I don't want to copy the name, but that's where clever actually came. It's not that I'm clever. Let's be clear. I'm kind of the opposite. But I thought that Clever Hooves was kind of a play on that, and that's where the name came from.
I guess where that was a character in the show somewhere. Was it not?
Not to my knowledge.
I always thought it was a play on Clever Clogs.
What?
Clever Clogs.
Who the hell is that?
Have you never heard of the phrase clever clogs? It's
That
just
must be
someone.
English.
Okay, I reckon the closest American equivalent would be smartass then.
Yes, and that actually is a play on my name as well. Because I was like, well, I'm often been called a smartass or a smarty pants or whatever, but I was like, well, rather than having a smart ass or a smarty pants, maybe clever hooves would work. So it was sort of a double. It was an homage and a double entente. So but that was, it took months for me to actually play the double entente, and when it did, it was very satisfying.
It's kind of naughty as well, isn't it?
There we go, clever clogs. And I was wrong. Apparently, according to this, the closest equivalent in American is not a smartass, it's clever dick. Didn't know that.
Never
like
heard
ours
that term
better.
either, clever dick.
Clever clogs
It's
rather
not.
than clever dick.
It's not. It's still British. When you click on
Yeah,
that,
I think so. Clever dick is
Ah.
not something we'd say here.
I've heard clever dick used in American stuff, so that's definitely one of the things you've nicked from across the pond.
it says British
but
and
clever
informal.
clogs is better than clever dick.
I don't know. I think clever dick is amazing.
Dicks are very, very rarely clever. They steal all the blood and stop the thinking from happening at all.
It says a person who is clever in a way that is annoying.
So, Clever Hooves, is your name actually Clever Clogs or Clever Dick?
It's
When
clever.
you're making tree puns, you're an absolute dick.
Oh, come on. They're good.
No, I stand by that.
MP, don't you just love it when people are like, okay, fix it? And you're like,
Just fix it, nerd.
yeah,
Whatever, just fix it, nerd.
That was
just
your
do it.
entire job before, was people coming in and going, fix this.
And big. And
Are
big.
you trying to tell them all the
And
reasons
big.
why it was impossible?
The digital world is one of spells.
I like that. That would make NP kind of like, Warlock 4th
And-
class.
Oh, he's a wizard, all right.
You're a wizard, narrator.
Hang on, no. Gandalf the Name.
I'm a what?
You're a wizard, narrator.
You're a unit of power, Harry. I'm a what?
See?
Science jokes, woohoo!
Oh, the derision in that statement. Science jokes are the best.
My
Hello?
dad's a
Can
science
anyone hear me
teacher.
now?
Yes, indeed we can.
Can you
What did
hear
you
us?
do?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yay!
You did a great
It
job.
works! Oh my
What'd you
god, I'm
do?
so sorry. Thank you for the help.
It's live!
I love how literally half of this entire podcast has been us dicking around while we're trying to help you connect.
I am so sorry.
It's fine. This has been A-grade material for me to put in outtakes.
My wife even
I'm
made a
glad
cameo.
you did.
Yes. Oh,
Do you have the fic up, the discussion document up?
No, I'll go get.
that's right. I'll share it here. There you go. Also, this will see whether or not you've got speech to
Thank
text
you.
enabled on this.
Apparently so.
So we had a problem last time where apparently text-to-speech is turned on by default. So if you hear a little robot reading out everything they put in the text, you can turn that off.
You
Yeah,
want
that
to?
Nobody-
happened to me.
Yeah, you didn't tell us till the end of like a 3-hour recording session that everything we'd been saying had been narrated to you. All the times people were muting and unmuting, you were being told.
It's a terrible, terrible feature, and if you don't know that's on, you could turn that off. So just
Yeah.
FYI.
Mute on.
Okay.
Mute off.
Okay, well, we just about got to, because I've been crossing them off as we go. We were just on impressions of the Prose Style, but since you've now joined us, Flutty, we can just have, your general opinion on the story as we go forward.
I thought it was pretty good and creepy. Good atmosphere.
Woohoo! Queen of
Well
Brevity.
said. Well said.
She sounds like you and me. It's like, do I have anything more to say? Right, okay. I have completely lost track of where we even were because it has been a good 45 minutes since we stopped talking about the actual story in this story-based podcast.
We were on the Sam Raimi thing.
Yeah, we were
Just
talking about Sam
before
Raimi.
then. Just before then.
Well, we think we talked about the... we were midway through talking about whether or not it should have started when they entered the building, and we'd realised that we were we were divided upon party lines upon that one. So, Vladdy, you were our tiebreaker. Do you reckon that the start of the story should have happened when AJ and RD arrived at the cabin, or did it benefit from having that prolonged description at the start?
I personally really liked the prolonged description at the beginning. Then suddenly they enter that world of danger and whatnot.
Well
Damn
said.
it! That means that the other side win.
I want-
Sorry, Clever, we lost.
Yeah.
I want to be clear in that it's not for me that it had to immediately start with the action. I just felt that they could have truncated or inserted some of that description or copied and pasted it after some of the action had begun. I just felt it was a bit
Like
long.
when RD is looking at the door for the first time, I should have gone there.
Yeah, like they could have taken that description and dispersed it a little instead of having it all up front. I felt that a certain amount would have been fine to set the scene, but I felt it was a bit gratuitous to just set the scene. Not that it was done poorly, because it was done well. So I just want to say, I don't feel that I was on the don't have the start description. I just felt it was a little long.
Oh, that makes sense. I can understand that.
Yeah, but Illya, you very much like that. Didn't you do a reading of Lost Cities?
I did every Lost Cities I could
He's
find.
the Lost Cities guy. Are you kidding?
Exactly.
He's Mr. Lost Cities over here.
So yeah, I can see very much why you would enjoy that. But for me, it was a bit long. Right. Clever. This was your point that you added. Sam Raimi would be proud. Anyone else catch what felt to me to be a strong homage? So Clever, do you want to explain that one?
Well, if it's possible that people out there haven't seen films done by Sam Raimi, he's got a very distinct style, and it all started with
Schlock.
yeah. it all started with Evil Dead, and Evil Dead is the quintessential horror story of a cabin in the woods and this evil thing trying to break in and cause death and mayhem. And that's pretty much the premise of this story. That's just about, the description of, it just screamed to me Evil Dead or Cabin in the Woods, which is another product of Sam Raimi as well. So I just was wondering if anyone else caught that, or because I'm a fan of Sam Raimi's, if I was just reading that into it.
Anybody have anything to add to that? Did anybody else catch that homage? Or did it feel more of a coincidence?
Well, I, as a general rule, don't particularly care for that sort of story. I wouldn't have watched any of those movies. But I did think at some point, did someone not mention that Bruce Campbell was in one of those or some of those?
Oh yeah, he's in
He
all of
was
Sam
the lead
Raimi's films.
character.
Now, I do like Bruce
Yeah.
Campbell, so I might watch it at some point because of that. But as a rule, I don't care for those.
How do you
know Bruce Campbell and not know Evil Dead?
I not know Evil Dead?
Because of that television show he made, what the one where he was riding around, there was high tech and the old. It was sort of a steampunk.
I know which one you mean. The steampunk cowboy
yeah.
TV show.
That was a wonderful show.
I'm gonna look up the title of it now because I've forgotten it. I knew him from The Adventures of Hercules.
Oh
The Adventures
yeah,
of what?
yeah, The Adventures of Hercules. He did
Hercules.
cameos. Yeah,
Oh,
he also
and
in
he was
Xena
also
too.
he was also in Burn Notice, which I absolutely adored.
He was in the Spider-Man movies as well by Sam Raimi.
Yep. He's in all of Sam Raimi's films.
Yeah, except he played a different character in each of the Spider-Man movies.
That's right.
I'm gonna find where The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr.
That was it.
God, that only ran for 1 year in the early 90s. It feels like it should have run for longer.
Well, you should watch Burn Notice. It's wonderful.
Well,
He was also in The Man with the Screaming Brain.
yes, and it's not a good movie, but I watched it anyways because I'm a Bruce Campbell file.
And Bubba Hotep,
And I saw that one too. I own that
which
one.
is a very good movie.
I
It
think you
is
need to
for what it is
qualify
trying
that.
to be. It is stupid. It is gory. It is a huge treatise on the problems of growing old and everybody ignoring you, taken to satirical levels.
Oh my goodness.
It's literally about an undead mummy killing people in an old people's home. And Elvis is there because he once got somebody to pose as...
Yep.
Elvis is there because he got someone to pose as Elvis. And unfortunately, so he could go off and do non-Elvis-y things. And unfortunately, one of the times that he was doing this, the guy who was posing as Elvis died. And therefore everybody thought Elvis was dead and thought that this crazy old man was not really Elvis. But it was Elvis.
Well,
Oh
we're
my
also
goodness.
left wondering if he really is Elvis, because there's also a guy at the old folks' home that proclaims to be Kennedy.
Yep. And the question is, are these really these people, or are they people with dementia?
Well, in the case of Kennedy, we're pretty confident it's not, being that he's an old black guy. So there's an old black guy who thinks he's John Kennedy, and Elvis trying
They
to
also
defeat
talk
the
about
zombie.
brain changes. Literally, is that the thing we're going to be hung up on in this, as pushing the boundaries of disbelief in a movie where there's a mummy coming back from the dead and sucking up people's souls?
You know,
Could I just gently attempt to steer the conversation
Yeah, go
back
on.
towards...
See, Vladdy, you're going to learn this, that I am moderator in name only. Neighrator is the one who actually keeps us from going off the rails.
He's
Like,
always
he is
in
my-
pay. It's always him.
It is. He is my better half in all the ways.
That makes sense.
in the spirit
Yeah.
of getting back on topic, did anyone, like MP, did you notice the Sam Raimi connection?
Other than the whole entire thing, no, I guess not. I'm not sure what you're referring to specifically.
Okay, so yes.
Well, the thing is, a cabin in the woods where a monster is trying to get you isn't specific to Sam Raimi. He did popularize it, but he didn't codify it.
I don't know the movie, so I can't say.
I will link you to Dina, a reviewer who goes through the movie and just shows you little bits of it to see if you're interested. Okay?
Oh, nice, thanks.
Great. We've also got NP's point now. The significance of the locks as a literary device. What was it trying to accomplish, and was it effective? So, MP, do you want to clarify what you mean by this? Because I'm not sure I follow.
Well, to be honest, I wrote this point like 2 hours ago, and now I've sort of forgotten. So there's all the locks on the doors, right? But only one of them actually like functions, and all the rest of them are non-functional, and the reader is sort of left to guess as to their true purpose. I think Clever Hooves had the best theory so far, that each of the locks were sort of like a notch on the bedpost for the monster, and each one of them represented someone that he had gotten to open the door and had subsequently been eaten or whatnot, or that they serve as a reminder to whoever lived in the cabin, sort of a visual reminder to open the door. So yes, what exactly was the author's purpose in including the locks, and did it accomplish that? Please discuss.
I question the idea of it being a lock for every person or pony who's been eaten, because who was putting up the new locks each time if the people who put them up, the ponies who put them up there to remind themselves, have been eaten? Because they wouldn't be there to warn the next people to put the locks up, surely.
Well, to that point, if I may interject again, like what exactly is the relationship between the cabin and the monster? Are the two related? Like we're given to understand that there is some relationship. The author goes to some lengths to describe that the door, in particular, of this otherwise ramshackle cabin is in unusually good repair. So is the cabin is the cabin? Did the monster build the cabin? Does the cabin belong to the monster? Is it using the cabin to lure unsuspecting ponies in? And they are using a weed whacker outside, so that's fun.
Or is there actually a cabin at all? Maybe it's just a magical device.
Ooh. Clever, I think you had something to say there?
I just the clarification that it's possible that one pony put up all those locks as their way of trying to remind themselves not to open the door. But I mean, that also suggests that the house would have been built and then the monster moved in, right? Like, it takes a while to build a house, certainly more than a day. So, or if the house manifested, that would be different. But still, so I really struggled with the locks initially, and then the idea that the monster has the locks somehow manifest after each person made actually way more sense to me than a pony putting the lock on as a reminder because they would forget, because that's what the monster seems to do.
Illya?
Well, I know how we could resolve this. If
We're
the
not having a
author-
cage fight.
If the author had bothered to finish the story, things might have been explained.
Well, do you want to clarify? Because this is a point that you said before, that you thought the author had not explained anything.
I wasn't particularly a big fan of the story, even though it was beautifully written, because of the type of story it was. And monster tries to get in, they try to keep the monster out. That's rather boring to me. But it could have been saved if there had been some proper denouement, if they had resolved the issue somehow. Now, I never liked that story, The Lady or the Tiger. When I was a kid, we had to read that in school, and I didn't like it because of the ambiguity of the ending. You end a story if you're going to write it, otherwise you're being lazy. But at least in The Lady or the Tiger, the author provided an epilogue to explain the dichotomy that exists.
I'm going to interrupt and just say, I have never even heard of this story. What is The Lady and the Tiger?
Well, it was a story. It was written in the 19th century, I believe, by an author who was famous for writing odd bits of things that were rather difficult to explain. He didn't follow traditional literary traditions. He broke some rules and things. And one of the rules he broke was he wrote a story about a person who had angered some sort of highfalutin official. And so they threw him into this arena where there were a couple of doors. Behind one door was the beautiful lady whose affections he sought, I think. And behind the other door was a tiger. He had to choose doors, and one of them would prove him virtuous, I think, and one of them would prove him evil and he'd be eaten. And that's where they stopped, when he was about to choose the door. And then the author went on to explain what the rationale behind that was and what the various things meant if he chose this door or if he chose that door, which would have been okay if they could have done that in the story and maybe cleared up a few points at the same time, like this author did in the 19th century. They probably would have cleared up the locks thing and explained a few other things about the setting, and they didn't. And I thought that was, to put it honest, lazy. That's the way I felt about it. I was really disappointed.
I'm curious if Illya, how you felt about the movie Inception. And I'm not trying to get off task. I'm just wondering if A, if you've seen it, and B, do you feel similarly about the ending of that movie?
Never heard of it. Explain it, please.
Oh my goodness.
Sugar. Right. We may have to have a movie session with Illya for
Am I
this one.
supposed to know every damn bit of pop culture out there?
No, but that one is
It's just a lot to
really
explain.
difficult to explain. It's one of those that it would be better if we had a movie night and watched it with you and then heard your opinion on it. It would literally be easier.
If you had seen the movie, you would understand what a monumental task it would be to attempt to explain the plot of Inception.
Indeed. It's
kind of
yeah.
nuts.
But
Not something you can do quickly.
but
I take it had ambiguous ending.
yes, it did.
Hugely.
Oh, yeah.
so.
Yeah, and-
Like, it's become the archetypical. There's a reason why Clever brought it up. It is now the go-to. Is the ending real or not type thing?
I'd have hated it.
Probably you would have.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because I was like, well, I feel that sometimes the ambiguous ending is the person trying to send a strong message about resolution. And in the case of Inception, that was certainly the case, that the director / writer, whatever, that he was trying to send a very strong message about resolution and acceptance, and that was the point. But in other cases, I'm not sure that that's really why. And in this case, I both love and hate the ending. I love it because it's sort of left up to us to, in that moment of, are they dead or are they not? And there's something I kind of love about that thrill of what's going to happen. And it's kind of left to you. So there's a part of me that I like it. And there's another part of me that's like, fuck off. I want to know. And I kind of vibrate between those two extremes. And what I will say for points is that if they had done a little more explaining, or I think it would become less scary, potentially, because part of the fear is not really understanding what's going on, not to the point where you're irritating the viewer, but having a complete understanding about how, you know, this particular creature works or how the magic works in the situation could lessen the tension a bit or the confusion. On the other hand, if it's done deftly, it could enhance it. So I'm clearly of two minds about the whole thing.
Well, in order for it to be more scary, it would have to be scary in the first place. I didn't feel any fright or anguish or anything reading this thing. It was like, oh my God.
I'm going to interject on this one because...
silly movie monster thing.
I'm going to interject. I don't think this was intended to be scary. I think...
It was Applejack.
It was Applejack. It was Applejack. Oh, no. I think this is an example of something that came up rather more in Gothic fiction than in horror fiction. And in Gothic fiction, there was an idea of something called the sublime, which is the notion that the purpose of Gothic is not to scare you, it is to either unsettle you or to make you feel one emotion exclusively. And the moment of the sublime is meant to be when you are, from a moment of fiction, feeling one emotion exclusively and purely, with no other emotions getting in the way, and it has to have been inspired by the thing you are reading. It is most notably associated with Gothic fiction because fear was a thing that was inspired largely in the 19th century when, there were not as many media sources deadening people to the power of the written word, but also there were not as many life experiences making people understand the world. Science as a concept was still in its infancy and religion still had a bit of a chokehold on the world. So in the 19th century and in Victorian times, the sublime could be achieved through fear inspired by the written word because people did not understand the world as much as we do now. So more things scared them, and writing about those things could scare them. As time has gone on, that has sort of lessened from fear to being unsettled and almost what we would now call the uncanny valley, the feeling that something is not quite right but not being able to put a finger on what it is. And I reckon this fic was attempting that as opposed to being scary. Whether or not it achieved that, Illya, is totally subjective to everybody. But I do reckon it was trying to achieve this atmosphere and attempting the sublime in a Gothic fiction sense as opposed to attempting fear in a horror sense.
Well, I think there's a problem here that we may have stumbled onto in the old days, say in the 19th century. People would have been much more closely familiar with actual death, dead bodies. There was no sanitization of the world. You're probably going to find a dead person in your life sometime in the 19th century. It's just inevitable.
Yep.
There was a lot of death, and there was very little ability to cover it up. In the modern century, what we have are literary representations of death and talk about death and an immense amount of communication about it, but very little firsthand experience. So that all we have are these things that try to evoke the emotions that were probably much more easily evoked in the 19th century and earlier. So it's probably a device that doesn't work the same way it did then.
No, I fully agree. I didn't say it was successful in what I tried to do. I'm just trying to put my slant on what I think it was trying to do. Obviously, without speaking to the author, don't know. Author might have been trying to really scare us, in which case, yeah.
He almost did it one time when he referred to the smell of the thing. That's a very visceral thing, smell, and that almost kind of got me there when he did that.
Vladdy?
I'd say I did get a sense of unease during like the middle bit when we're kind of still not used to the familiar pattern. But then after a while, because us as the reader don't have that same insomnia, then it kind of just gets tedious and them go through that same sort of forgetting and going back to being tempted to open the door again.
Clever?
Yeah, I really felt that what was achieved was this tension that had its height when the two Rainbow and Applejack ended up confronting each other, and I don't know how they would have ended up with the story kind of going where the author wanted it, but I almost wanted them at each other's throats. I felt like it was a half step lower than where he could have taken it. It was very natural where it did go, but I felt like there was an opportunity to raise the stakes somehow even more. Though there was a part of me that was relieved that he didn't. You can tell I vibrate on this fic. Like there are moments where I'm like, I liked it, but I wish it was more, but I don't know if I would have liked it if it was more. And I
think AJ should have died. I'm going to go out and say, I think the creature should have taken AJ, and Ardy should have made the decision that I have to shut this door. And then in the morning, it was AJ's voice she heard, and she's not sure if it's AJ really come back.
I thought that would have happened.
Yeah. I definitely thought that would have been a better ending than the pair of them still there, and it's Twilight's voice in the morning. Because Twilight of all ponies, she can just fucking teleport inside.
Exactly.
They didn't need to open the door.
Oh, you know what? Yeah. I like your version.
Yeah.
But or
because they could have just said, Twilight, if it's really you, can you teleport inside, please? Boom, here I am. Oh, look, we're safe.
Or because Rainbow Dash was listed, wouldn't it be interesting if the monster was now part of the room?
I think that one would have taken a lot more explaining. Working within the confines of what we had, I think it would have worked better if AJ had not made it.
And that's got to pain you a little bit, because I know you're an AJ fan.
I'm a fan of all of these ponies if they're written right.
But they're all equally expendable.
Anybody got any thoughts on this? In a horror fic, everyone's expendable. That's the beauty of grimdark fanfiction. They're alive, still in canon. We can do what we want in fandom.
Exactly.
Anybody got anything to add to this?
Well, the virgins always survive in a horror fic, so I guess.
Not
AJ and Dash
necessarily
are-
citing Cabin in the Woods for this particular thing. The virgins absolutely did not survive.
That's a deconstruction that doesn't count.
Oh, whatever.
It does. Absolutely does. Okay. Anybody got anything to add before we move on?
Just that you're really good at coming up with a better ending. That was
True.
Yeah.
That's the thing that we do all the time in this. Right. So our thoughts on the ending. We've kind of gone over this, but other than the problems we've said, are there any other thoughts we have on the ending? Anyone?
I just want to know
I'll
if
go first.
everyone thought, anyone but me thought there should have been an epilogue.
What do you mean? What could have been added in an epilogue?
Explanations?
I think that we've established the author didn't really go in for those.
Okay.
Could have maybe added like someone else finding it and then turning out like, hey, here's the actual rescue party, but they didn't find them. That kind of epilogue, right?
Yeah.
Or
they get up there and
described,
we're not sure if they've left or if they've been eaten.
Oh,
or
yeah.
if there was like a new lock that appeared, and that could at least explain the significance of the damn lock.
There you go.
Yeah, it would have been nice if they added more
Could
about the
be.
lock. They made such a big emphasis when it first appeared, but then just kind of ignored and forgot about it.
I'll take an opposing viewpoint. Like, wasn't the best part of the fic the not knowing what the monster was, the rising action? You're wondering what's going on, what's out there. Like, isn't the not knowing the best part? Do you really want a fic? That seems to be a question that comes up anytime we review a fic. Like, do you want a fic where the author holds the reader's hand the entire way and is left to infer nothing or to guess at nothing? It's an open and shut case every step of the way. Or would you rather have a few things left to the imagination?
Illya, then Clever.
Clever was first. That's funny.
Sorry, I saw you first.
Absolutely not, NP. Yeah, I don't mind not knowing shit the whole thing long. I mean, the whole fic long, not knowing a damn thing, being curious, wondering what the fuck's going on. That's the mystery part. Then at the end, you resolve the mystery. And that's the fun part. You have a problem, you have a solution. That's the way I look at them.
Clever?
I think there's I keep going back to Chekhov's gun. if you're going to spend, like, it's okay to have things that are never explained, but if you draw your attention to and spend significant time on a particular item, thing in your story, and then you never really come back to it, that's kind of a mistake. Now, in the case here, I mean, if the sole purpose was just to make it look creepy, okay. I just felt like then they overdid it a little. Because you could argue that having all these non-functional locks on it just gave the place kind of an element of the Willies, like someone crazy was here, clearly, because this makes no sense. But it felt like they were more meaningful than that somehow. And that was just kind of left up in the air. And I wish that with all the attention it was given, that it deserved some kind of resolution, if nothing else.
But I disagree, actually. The point of if the point of the locks was to, I think personally the author was going for that they were just to serve as a visual reminder for whoever occupied the cabin previously. And it definitely, they go into, the author goes into significant exposition on the locks and how they, how our Rainbow Dash could almost feel the madness, coming from it. And I thought it was effective in that. So I thought it was fine.
Any rebuttal?
Yeah. It would have been nice if it at least, like, when they would go to it, that they actually stopped to look at the locks and be like, wow, that's a lot of locks. I remember when something's supposed to be locked out, and actually remember like that. But the fact they never brought it up again kind of, again, made it useless, even if they're not actually functionally locks and just meant to be reminders. It never reminded them. So would have been nice to get something from that.
Slight tangent, if I may.
Go on then, Epi.
Just sort of tacky on to this point, but I thought the whole relationship between, the author goes into take significant time and with the exposition at the beginning describing the cabin and stuff like that. But what exactly is the relationship between the cabin and the monster? So I just got through saying that, it's some element of mystery should remain throughout, in my opinion. Others feel differently, but like what exactly was the relationship there? Why is this cabin in the woods? The cabin could not have been built by the monster, because why would he build a cabin to ensnare the ponies that he then required them to get into that he could not open himself? Why would you do that? To me, it would make more sense if the cabin was built and it had a special room with all the crazy locks on it that was containing the monster, and that they were staying in the cabin and it was the monster's trying to get them to let them out,
See, I got the feeling within that the cabin predated the monster. But AJ does, it's supposition on AJ's part, but it does go some way to potentially explaining this. When she talks about the bull, that something being done doesn't mean it's not dangerous, and it kind of makes it more dangerous because it doesn't know when it's got to give up. And I took that to mean that's why the monster always targets the door, because it sees doors as a point of entrance and it can't process that it could get in other ways.
Don't forget that the multitude of locks were old and rusty and everything, and that the latch that Rainbow Dash used was quite new.
Yeah, I definitely got the feeling that the cabin had been there longer than the monster had.
Yeah.
And the locks and things had been added to keep it out, because you couldn't build a cabin in a day.
I got the feeling that the cabin was there exactly when the monster was there, that it was a device that
could be
part of the magic of the monster. He needed a cabin to keep from killing everybody in the world.
Could be, or could have been a focal point to keep it distracted from leaving the Everfree. But again, that's part of that thing you said of we don't get that explanation.
You see how
Aside
many...
from asking the author, we don't know. Yeah, I'm getting more of your frustration now, Illya.
Yeah.
I was more taken up with the sublime and the atmosphere and the ending and what we were given, and now I'm becoming more resentful of this story. So thank you for that.
I think it's okay to steal man NP's point. There are people who like to retain mystery, and there are people who like to have all mystery explained, and it's not. There's no one choice. Both points are valid.
I was less I felt that the cabin was the setting, like initially. And now the more we talk about it, yeah, I agree. It would have been nice if they could have explored that mythos. I don't know that it would have been necessary for me to be satisfied with the story, but the madness of the locks, like Vladdy said, if they'd ever worked to actually remind either AJ or Rainbow Dash not to open the door, then I might believe that someone would put them up in a mad attempt to try and keep themselves, reminded. But where would they get the locks from to do that? Just boggles my mind too. There's so many logical fallacies with that it really makes me wonder if that isn't part of the magic, or the, that's not something that the victims do. That this is all part of what the monster or the magic connected to the monster does, or the magic of the Everfree. So, but because not any of that is ever really explicitly made known, we're left with this uncomfortable, like, gee, what was that about? And you don't, I guess, need that answer to, enjoy the main tension in the story, because it's not really about the locks on the door. But I think that coming up with an explanation and entwining it to the story could have been more satisfying.
Okay, so that does segue nicely on 2.9. The villain. How effective do we find it? And its central conceit? Because so we brought up some of the plot points that go along with this. But taking those into account, is it an acceptable or an effective antagonistic force? And I'm going to start with MP on this one.
Oh, that was a terrible idea. Can I pass?
The total silence, and then, oh, that was a terrible idea. The total deadpan result of that. Okay, we'll end with you, MP. How's that sound?
Sure.
Vladdy?
I think at first it seemed to be working well and being creepy. Like, I found it kind of more creepy when it seemed like some just wild animal that they couldn't identify, and then also creepy when it first started doing voices and adjusting as it figured out who they were, and somehow figured out who was related to them, who they might open for. But over time, it kind of lost its effectiveness, because, yeah, it'd be terrifying, like I said earlier, to them having forgotten, like having to remind themselves. But for us, it kind of just gets a little repetitive. And yeah, with like kind of they've been picking and choosing on what to like actually reveal and what to like keep mystery. And the monster is always scarier when you have it like unknown, when you don't know. As soon as you reveal what it is, yeah, it might look all creepy and stuff, but it kind of loses the fear of the mystery, which this kind of seemed to be aiming for, of the suspense. And without that, it kind of lost its figure.
I agree with you on that. I kind of wish that when AJ said, you saw him, right? That didn't really happen to him. Ardy had gone, no, that didn't really happen. And we knew nothing more, rather than the exposition of his melting face.
Exactly.
We didn't need to know that bit. That would have been more effective. Less is more. So I agree with you very much on that, buddy. Illya, what do you reckon?
It was very effective to me. It was required in order to set up everything that happened. They had to be lured. They had to fight the lure over and over again. So, yeah, it worked really well.
Clever?
I was listening to what Vladdy had to say, and something hit me, and I realized I think the author could have kept the tension up if they didn't limit themselves to the door being the safety net. And I guess I should explain that, and I will. The fact that the monster could only come apparently through the door, and yet the door was completely effective at keeping the monster out, reduces the tension because they are safe. And so the game does become all psychological. But I think the tension could have been, but then we get this like, okay, as long as they remember, things are fine, and then just rinse, repeat. But if for some reason or some way, there were different ways that the monster could attack them and still keep the psychological drama going on, then we could see some different scenarios play out where we wouldn't know whether or not they were safe or not, and that could keep the tension heightened. I did like, though, the one part that was very creepy was when they sort of discuss how the walls have been covered in the names. And I thought that was, I just had that scene flash, and I thought, however if we were playing the should have done this, should have done that, that was just an iconic moment. And I thought they could have built that up better, because that reminded me of like the scene in The Shining, the Kubrick version, where
see, I was going to say The Simpsons. That's why I couldn't take it seriously.
Yeah, but when she discovers his writing, and it's all all the same thing formatted again and again and again, but that became a really chilling moment, and I felt like that moment somehow was half stepped in here with that, like that could have been even more powerful than what it was. And so the repetitive element does lessen the tension, and I feel that the author kind of limited themselves by making the point of entry having to be the door, and the door was completely infallible except for the people in it. Though I'm not smart enough to come up with what would have worked better. I'm just pointing out that's an issue with that particular setup.
MP, do you feel ready to comment yet?
I'll do my best.
Okay.
I'm up very late.
Yeah, we're nearly finished with up.
Yeah, the best part of the story, I'm with Clever Hooves. The best part of the story was discovering the names that they had scratched into the table, and then forgotten about. And the list keeps growing, and it keeps expanding, and then it's on the walls and so on. That was the best part of the fic. I feel like everything around it was just there to support just kind of that one, just there to support that one moment in the story. When we finally got to see the monster, I remember reading it and I was like, oh, it was a bit disappointing. Is I kind of liked it when we didn't know what they looked like. Sort of rolls into the next point, which is like, was the story made better or worse when we finally saw the monster? I think worse. I think the not knowing was it was after all that tension, it was a bit of a letdown. Oh, some big scary changeling monster. Well, I mean, we assumed, but
I'd like to make a point on Clever Hooves' point.
Go on then, Illya.
It had to be the door. The door was the central character of the story, and the reason it is what the story was actually about, finding out what was it in AJ and Dash's heart that meant the most to them. What button could the monster find inside them to push to make them open the door? There had to be a door that was easily opened if the monster hit the right key. What we were doing was we were exploring the psyches of what it meant, what things meant the most to Applejack and what things meant the most to AJ. I mean to Rainbow Dash. And that to me was the whole point of the story.
Anybody else got anything to say on this? Because I fully agree that with something that MP said about, I don't think anything was going to be satisfying as the final reveal of the monster. I don't think the author could have written anything at all that would have matched whatever the reader or the audio listener's imagination had previously done. Vladdy?
Another thought crossed my mind that something else that could have been effective is if it really was Twilight at the end, but they did not open for her and just they ended up locking themselves in from the madness and fear of what was out there.
To be honest, I kind of thought that's what was going to happen. They were going to sit there and we wouldn't know whether or not they opened the door. I had convinced myself that's how it ended, and I was therefore really surprised when I re-listened to it and just went, oh, they do open the door. Oh, well, shit. I kind of like the ambiguity of whether or not they were going to, and is it really the monster outside? Had they just fooled themselves into thinking it could only come out at night? Clever?
Yeah, I kind of like that idea that maybe they left it like locked. And I just wanted to touch on the question of, was the story made better or worse when we finally saw the monster? I agree that it would although they did their best to draw something straight out of hell, not draw, but paint a picture of something straight out of hell. I always feel that your imagination does a better job when it's given no information. And the thing that I always cite about that is the original Blair Witch, that we never get the satisfaction of actually seeing the monster in that movie. But at least for me, and I know people are divided on that, on the Blair Witch, but not seeing it made it so much worse than if they had actually shown it. And I feel the same about this story. This is a case where they decided to show it, and I think if only there was like an arm and then marks on AJ, I think that would have been sufficient.
Anybody got anything to add?
No.
Only that I agree. We didn't need to see the monster. And I'm coming around to NP's point. Maybe it was good that we didn't get an ending. That's a pretty bold statement from me.
Yeah.
It
Really is.
What made you change your mind?
Because I don't like that. What changed my mind was I think in my mind I actually realized that it wasn't about the monster or the danger they were in or anything. It was just about the thoughts. When I come to the idea that it was just what was it in each of their hearts that meant the most to them, that was explored. That was enough. So I'm okay with that now.
Yes.
Sweet. Okay, so does anybody have anything to add?
I'll add a little bit on that. If it was and I'm not saying it wasn't the point. I agree that, you know, what buttons do we push? I almost wish then that we could have had maybe one or two more scenes of some buttons really getting pushed between the two of them, or maybe at least one more. I mean, and with AJ's being the climax.
That is a great idea.
Yeah.
That seems a pretty good note to end on. So we'll go into final thoughts. I'll spin the wheel for who's going to pick next time. I hope everybody brought a pick, apart from MP and I, because we're the only ones who can't pick this cycle now. And then we'll say goodbye. So, final thoughts then. I'm going to end with you, MP, since it was your fic. So, final thoughts, Clever.
If you like a cabin in the woods kind of story with MLP characters, it's definitely worth a read. It's very well written. And I think just in this discussion today, I think getting together and talking about it with someone else, I think makes this fic worth talking about, because I think we started off thinking it wasn't going to be a lot to talk about, and I think we kind of unearthed some interesting concepts. I think it warrants a read for sure. That's my final answer.
Illya?
Well, I started out thinking it's beautifully written, which I still do, but the story was boring. But now that we've had this discussion, I think it's a much better story than I originally thought it was. I'm very pleased with it.
Vladdy?
Yeah, I'm about on the same page, even though it could have been a little better and stuff. It overall is still really good atmosphere overall, and does have its good points of tension. So good creepy read to have.
And MP?
9.5 out of 10.
Why? It was your fucking pick. Why have you knocked half a mark off?
Look, I shoot from the hip here, okay? When I do my ratings, I go with my gut.
I want it on record that I avoided all innuendos that could have followed that comment.
Wow.
Clever, however, has none of my restraint.
None.
And which, yeah, I agree. It's a good story. I definitely think that it's one of those stories that benefits from being an audio reading. I don't think I would have got nearly as much enjoyment out of it if I had just been reading it.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat.
Go listen to the audio
It's
reading.
good.
Yeah, go listen to the audio reading. It's very, very good. And Robin Jacks needs to come back because he hasn't done anything since 2019.
I know, it's very sad.
Right, in which case, I'm going to load up the wheel. Everybody got a fic chosen?
I think so.
Sure.
Cool. Yep. Remember, it's just, the only thing is, can't be clop, and less than 60,000 words. That's it. And then the rest of it, we have to read it. Might hear it through my headphones. Right, here we go. Spinning. Spinning, 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 and it is Illya!
Yay!
Oh, fuck, that's loud.
Yay!
So, Illya, what is the story we are reviewing next time?
Can we do mine? Is that illegal?
Yeah?
A fic that you have written yourself?
I've written
We
one in
kind
my
of did
life.
the same. We kind of did the same with Lost and Magpie. So, Lost helped to write La Pomme Boutique.
I know where a lot of the problems with my fic are, and I'd like to hear what other people think the problems are. I'm looking for criticism in this one. It's the first and only story I've ever written. It's called Rhythm, and it's
Okay.
some fanfiction.
No pressure.
You-
First
you-
and only
you-
story. Get
No.
criticism.
No, I'm not very. It doesn't bother me. I know
do
I'm no
know-
author. just try to
You're
play
still a brave soul.
one game. Yeah, no big deal.
You do know
Yeah.
what we do to fics, don't
Yeah,
you?
and that's what I want you to do.
Rip them to shreds.
Rip it up. Rip it up. That's what I need.
Well, okay. So, next time, our fic chosen by Illya is Rhythm by Illya Leonov. And with that, we shall say goodbye to our fair listeners and hope they join us next time. So, it's goodbye from Clever Hooves.
Goodbye and farewell.
Goodbye from Illya Leonov.
Have a fair day, everyone.
Goodbye from Neighrator Pony.
Goodbye, everybody.
And goodbye from newcomer VladiVoices.
Bye bye, everyone. Have a lovely day.
And goodbye from me. Fuck off, everybody. Bye! It's not
You
a
gotta
podcast
get
if
them
I
to
haven't
fuck
told
off
everyone to
in-
fuck off. I had to!
Yeah.
We got to the very end and I realised I hadn't told everyone to fuck off once. So, like,
Oh, my.
I was overdue.
Oh, I didn't realize that was actually on the boxes of things to
Oh,
touch.
Oh, that's actually
that
on the
has
boxes.
to be
It's just a
done.
thing that happens.
Mm.
Usually, it happens quite near the start. But I realised that I had nearly got to the end without saying it. So, yeah, fuck off, everyone. Bye.
So not any one person, everyone gets to go fuck off.
Oh, no, it has to be everyone. Fuck off, everyone.
Oh.
So fuck off Clever, fuck off Illya, fuck off Illya, fuck off Illya,
No.
fuck off
Fluck
MP,
off,
and fuck
Illya,
off,
Fluck off.
fluck off, bloody, fluck. Oh, fluck.
Now I want to see a character called Fluckershy.
I read the story Fluffershy. It's kind of almost the same thing.
Of course you did.